I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the drama playing out in real time out in Tucson, Arizona. The abduction of Nancy Guthrie, a case that has everyone wondering who is the man behind the mask and why did he take Nancy? Here's the story. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie vanished from her Catalina Foothills home after she never made it to church and relatives discovered something was terribly wrong inside. Authorities quickly shifted from a missing person search to a criminal investigation, saying the evidence points to an abduction, not a voluntary disappearance. Surveillance video shows a masked individual outside her home in the dark of night, armed with a weapon. Blood confirmed to be Nancy's was found on the property. Ransom letters surfaced. The FBI joined the investigation. Now the case has drawn national attention, fueled by Nancy's connection to her daughter. Today's show host, Savannah Guthrie. Who is the person captured on camera? Are the ransom demands credible? And as thousands of tips flood in, what critical piece of evidence could finally lead authorities to Nancy? Hard to believe that we're still here waiting for an answer, waiting for a suspect, waiting for someone to be arrested, waiting for Nancy Guthrie to be found after all this time. But this is where we are. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, great to see you tonight. We know things are slowing down a little bit in terms of the activity out there, but what is the latest that's happening right now in this investigation and in around Nancy's neighborhood?
Yeah, things are slowing down. It was another quiet weekend out there in the Catalina Foothills, out there in front of Nancy Guthrie's house. Practically no media out there at all anymore in that neighborhood. But Vinny, there was chatter making its way through the headlines about a body found miles away in Phoenix, Arizona, but it turned out to be unrelated to this case. Now, the New York Post reported this, saying authorities have identified the battered body of a woman who was found dead near a canal in Phoenix, and it's not Nancy Guthrie. The remains were found on Friday, more than 100 miles from Tucson, where the 84-year-old mom of Today Show star Savannah Guthrie was kidnapped 5 weeks ago. The woman has been identified as Alex Fleming, 42 years old, according to KTAR. But then we have another slight development here in this investigation. The New York Post also reported this, saying more than 5 weeks after the suspected abduction of Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today co-host Savannah Guthrie, Arizona authorities say cadaver dogs used earlier in the investigation are not currently being deployed as the search continues. The elder Guthrie is believed to have been kidnapped from her home in the Catalina Foothills in northern Tucson around 2:30 a.m. on February 1st. So, Vinny, pulling back cadaver dogs, that can be indicative of the investigators going on to think that Nancy is alive. They believe she's out there somewhere. But, we're in the 6th week here, and there's still so much up in the air.
Absolutely. But that's a little surprising to me about the cadaver dogs. Cody's going to stick around this hour. So no cadaver dogs currently being used in the search for Nancy Guthrie, which brings us to the first question in our investigation tonight, which is, should investigators be looking for a body? And I say that as opposed to someone who's being held captive. Here to help with our investigation, host of the 13th Juror podcast and Crime Junkie Jury on YouTube, Brandy Churchwell is here, and true crime podcaster, host of Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Tony Bruschi. Okay, Brandy, as we, time keeps churning. We knew time was of the essence 6 weeks ago, right? Like, it was important then, even more important now. Do you believe that investigators should be looking for a body at this point as opposed to finding someone being held in a room somewhere or in a basement somewhere or in a house somewhere?
I think not necessarily as opposed to, but I think that it should definitely be a part of the investigation. I think in cases like this, investigators don't need to choose between searching for a victim or searching for a body. They can do both at the same time. Continue to search as if she's still alive while also looking at locations where someone might dispose of a body. The reality is that when you have signs like this of an intrusion with the blood evidence and no confirmed proof of life, they can't really afford to focus on only one outcome. I think that, they have to follow both tracks until the evidence tells them otherwise. And unfortunately, statistically, vulnerable populations, especially elderly victims, face higher risk the longer they remain missing. So I don't know. I do think that, a dual track investigation it's not necessarily about giving up hope, but I think that, they need to make sure that critical evidence isn't missed. And, hope and realism can exist in the same investigation.
Yeah, and I think that's almost where the family is at this point. They have hope, they have belief, they have their faith, but they're also realistic at the same time. Tony, another part of this is that early on we had these ransom letters, and they've never been verified one way or the other, but we do know that the way they were described, that there were deadlines, and if the deadlines weren't met, really bad things were going to happen as a result. So with that in mind, with the fact that they've pulled back the cadaver dogs at this moment, what are your thoughts about how this search should be going right now?
I find it bizarre that the cadaver dogs would be pulled back at this moment. It just seems like a resource that you would want to have in this investigation as it continues to go forward. I don't think unless there's something that we don't know that they know, I don't think that they're suddenly changing a direction here and we're suddenly going to go 100% that she's alive. I'm going to think for quite a while they've been thinking that she may not be with us. Like maybe by day 2, they thought that, not saying it out loud. I mean, she was an 84-year-old woman, has a pacemaker, needed medication every single day for her heart. And who has her? Someone who showed up to abduct an elderly woman and thought covering a doorbell with weeds was going to be a solid plan. So we're not really dealing with somebody here that is a mastermind. 5 weeks, no Nancy, no arrest, no confirmed sightings. They are running many tracks available right now. They're searching out there, and the ground washes the desert, the brush lines outside of Tucson, both at the same time every single day. We know that is going on. The family obviously hasn't quit. There's that $1 million reward still on the table, and law enforcement hasn't quit. But again, hope doesn't suspend biology, and you can have both working at the same time. I don't know. It seems rather foolish that you're pulling the cadaver dogs back, or is this just another piece of information that somebody doesn't know what the left hand is doing that the right hand? I don't know. There's been so much confusion in this case already. It's really hard to know exactly what is going on.
With all the passage of time, Brandy, and there's not a suspect, right? So there's no one that you're looking for. So whoever is responsible could have taken her very far away, whether she's alive or not alive, which to me makes this almost at this point seem like a needle in a haystack, trying to find her or a suspect.
That's concerning, but I think that's also why they need to keep going with both routes of the investigation. It is a little bit concerning, especially being this far into it, that we don't have a suspect. And I think that the scene itself is going to, of course, give investigators the most important evidence. They can focus heavily on the forensic evidence inside the home, the blood evidence, fingerprints, fibers, digital data from cameras and phones, hopefully the DNA from inside the house. That can hopefully begin to tell investigators kind of which direction to go in, but it is kind of concerning with it being this far in and we don't have a person that we're specifically looking for or even know where to go.
Yeah, Tony, so much time for the suspect to get rid of any evidence, like all evidence, obviously everything that he's wearing, and then some. I mean, that's the part that scares me here, is that evidence may never, in the Idaho case, none of the physical evidence was found except for that knife sheath, which was left behind. But the rest of the stuff that was removed from the scene was never found. And I feel like the same thing may be happening here, only there's no DNA that we know of necessarily that was left at the scene that is leading to someone.
Yeah, I mean, this is a case, if it is solved, and God let's hope it is, that is going to be solved probably on digital evidence, primarily, I'm going to guess. Any of the physical, if this person has any sort of intelligence at all, that stuff is gone, long gone by now. Unless they're going to lead you to where it's at, I don't think that that's going to be a huge piece of the story, unless we can find some piece of DNA somewhere that's going to be a player in this. But at the end of the day, the footprint, the digital, the history, the recorded history of where this person was and when, and that's going to tie them back to it, including digital purchases and things of that nature, or purchases in person, the receipts, that is going to help tie this person to this crime. But first, we need a direction in which to look.
Yeah. All right. Brandy Churchwell, 13th Juror Podcast, Crime Junkie. Thank you so much. Great to see you. Tony's going to stick around. Coming up next, why are they investigating a damaged utility box?
Nobody's eliminated, but we just really don't have enough to say, this is our suspect, this is our guy, we know, or our gal. We just don't know that.
Weeknights on Court TV.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case.
It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Everyone is looking for you, Mommy. Everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again.
We are aware of a ransom letter that was sent to the local media and then to national outlets. As with every lead, we are taking it seriously.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward.
There have been a lot of strange parts of this investigation and some strange facts. Like, first of all, there was no video. Then Google was able to find video of the suspect. But then there's no real useful video from anyone in the neighborhood. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, we were talking about this last week because of this internet outage or alleged internet outage. What have you learned about that?
Yeah, Vinny, we know there was talk from multiple neighbors near Nancy's house that they were having trouble out of their home surveillance system, those Nest home surveillance systems, Ring cameras, specifically on the night that Nancy Guthrie went missing. And, you know, I spent time out there. I was out there for a week. One neighbor even told me when I was there that her home system was down that specific night as well. Take a listen.
I had police officers knock on my door about 9 o'clock a couple nights ago and ring my doorbell, and of course that scared me. It was dark and like what, and of course they were canvassing the neighborhood to see if people had any cameras outside, Ring cameras, thing like that could help. My camera had been down, and ADT was actually at my house Monday, and my camera was not up and running until about 5 o'clock Monday afternoon.
And Vinny, it goes even further. It gets even stranger. News Nation's Brian Enton posted this to X. He was still out there in the neighborhood, in the area. He posted, quote, "The FBI is looking into a possible internet outage during the time Nancy Guthrie went missing. One neighbor tells me his Ring camera history is mysteriously not available the night Nancy disappeared." Now, Brian Enton also posted pictures of 2 Ring cameras and said, quote, "These are the neighbors' Ring cameras that stopped working around the time Nancy Guthrie was abducted. Also, in the same time frame, their dog woke them up to go outside, which they say is very unusual." And Vinny, the reporting continues. According to NBC News, they say, quote, "Investigators hunting for leads in the search for Nancy Guthrie have asked people living in her neighborhood whether they noticed any disruptions to their internet connections on the night of her disappearance. Several different homeowners from the neighborhood told NBC News that the agents who came by their homes Thursday specifically asked them if they had noticed any disruptions or issues with their internet service the night that Nancy Guthrie went missing. According to those homeowners, the agents told them that several people who live in the area had mentioned there were glitches with their internet that night. And Vinnie, most recently, this was reported by Yahoo News, and this is where it gets a little strange here. They reported, quote, "The Pima County Sheriff's Department is investigating a damaged utility box around the corner from Nancy Guthrie's home as the desperate search for Today co-host Savannah Guthrie's mother continues in its second month. Investigators believe it could be connected to a reported internet outage that occurred around the time she disappeared in the early morning hours of February 1st, which disrupted nearby home surveillance cameras." Now, Vinnie, we see all this reporting, and what we've also seen is that suspect looking like a buffoon on the front stoop of Nancy's home, and it just leads me to think, is this guy or guys this advanced to carry out something like this, damaging a utility box in the neighborhood?
Yeah. Is that a coincidence? Is it not? Cody, thanks so much. Brings us to the next question in our investigation, which is, why are they investigating the damaged utility box? Do they believe that the operation was that planned and plotted? We're gonna take down people's cameras. Here to help answer the question is the host of Gray Hughes Investigates, Gray Hughes, and still with us, true crime podcaster Tony Bruschi. Gray, this is sort of interesting because we see the buffoon on the front porch, who hasn't been caught, by the way. So, you know, I use that term just based on the whole weeds thing, like that's crazy to me. But do you think it's sophisticated enough that they're taking out this utility box to try to take down people's surveillance cameras?
You know, what's interesting about this case is every time you kind of have a theory, there's always something that contradicts it. There isn't like, we don't ever just get this constant flow and then boom, we're onto something. And that's what we have here. We have this utility box, and yet the camera at the Guthrie's home worked. You know, it actually worked. It sent video out to the cloud. It was merely because they didn't pay their bill that it just put it out there and then deleted it almost immediately, and then it's available to be written over. So, you know, you have that element, and then you just kind of think, well, okay, well, they turned off perhaps the internet wiring. I looked it up, and it seems like there's telephone poles there that have the electrical on it, and these little boxes that are on the ground, I think they might have like fiber optics, et cetera. And it turns out I found where this box was. It's about a half mile down the road from her house to the east from Nancy's home. Then you take a right, and there's the box right there about a block later. And so it's, you know, it's quite a ways away. But the other neighbor, for example, the one that said that their power went off, it was unavailable. I thought it was that they continued to get video after the 2 o'clock hour, but maybe they didn't. You know, there's a lot of stuff we probably aren't aware of in this case that law enforcement has. For example, maybe there was a whole bunch of outage and there's no footage after a certain time frame, like 2 o'clock in the morning on various cameras. But, you know, it's just so frustrating because every time you get somewhere, there's always something
that contradicts it. That's not consistent with it. Tony, what do you think's going on here with this damaged utility box? And do you think that there's a connection here?
We got to be careful because we're trying to make the connection between the utility box and the internet outage. It's not an impossible jump, but it's another Mad Libs, like most of this case is, where you're trying to connect the dots and fill in the blanks. So I want to be careful with it. There's a damaged box near her home. PCSD says that they're aware and they're reviewing it. That we obviously know that. We don't know who owns the box, though, who controls it, or when it was damaged, and honestly, what it even does. There's a lot of utility boxes all over the place that are damaged in almost every neighborhood. Just go drive around for a little bit. You will find them. Heat, age, wear, they all take a beating, especially in the climate there. So is it something? It's interesting, without a doubt. Let's get some more answers before we draw the conclusions. The internet outage angle, no provider officially confirming any outage occurred, though. But what we have is several people telling Court TV, telling News Nation that their Ring camera footage from that night is unavailable. It's meaningful, but Ring cameras, we have to remember, they do go offline for a lot of reasons. A router issue, a storage glitch, a lapsed subscription, a software update, push through in the middle of the night, a routine service interruption from the area. All of them are possibilities. None of that requires anyone to touch a utility box. Could investigators be onto something here? absolutely possible, and let's hope that they are.
Yeah, let's
but
hope.
Right now, until someone identifies, what that box actually controls, or until a provider confirms a service disruption actually happened, it's a thread worth watching, but it's not a breakthrough yet.
All right, we're a little short on time tonight, but a big thanks, Gray Hughes. Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Check it out. And Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Still to come, what is the most promising lead in this investigation? I'm Vinnie Politan, and we continue our investigation of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. With every day that passes, hope seems to fade that Nancy is still alive. And while there is no proof of life, there is also no proof of death. Here's the story. An ordinary Sunday morning turned into a nightmare when Nancy Guthrie never showed up for church. The 84-year-old Tucson resident and mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie had last been seen around 9:45 p.m. on January 31st at her home in the Catalina foothills. When family members checked on her hours later and found the house empty, they called law enforcement. What began as a welfare check quickly escalated. Detectives designated the home a crime scene, stating the physical evidence indicates Nancy did not leave voluntarily. Blood identified as hers was located outside the residence. Investigators have also revealed that home security systems and digital health monitoring tied to her pacemaker were disabled during the overnight hours when she vanished. The FBI is now assisting in the case and has recovered images of a potential suspect. Armed with those developments, the search has continued, but still no arrests and no viable suspects. Now, obviously, as we've been saying, things have slowed down a little bit in the last couple of weeks, at least publicly, right? Behind the scenes may be a different story. They may be tracking something. Remember that happened in Idaho. We thought things were slow until they weren't, because they were tracking someone and had someone in their sights. Don't know if that's the case here or not, but let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Let's talk about some of the leads in this case. What are some of the biggest leads that we've seen so far during the course of this investigation?
Yeah, Vinny, we're going to break down 4 of the biggest leads here as we enter this 6th week of Nancy Guthrie being missing. And of course, we're going to start with that suspect doorbell camera video, the suspect we saw in the front stoop of Nancy's home. We see him making his way toward the door, gun hanging in his waistband directly in front of him. He has a mask on. He has a backpack full of who knows what. Now, the FBI's profiled this guy when they released this video. They say they believe that he's around 5'9" to 5'10", with an average build. And we saw him, again, picking up those weeds and attempting to cover the camera. Who knows what he was trying to do with that. But this is one of the first leads that we saw as this case began to develop. Now we move on to the pacemaker, Vinny. And the pacemaker, we know, Nancy's pacemaker disconnected from her phone at 2:28 a.m. the morning that she went missing. Take a listen to the sheriff addressing the timeline from that morning.
This is a timeline that we have been able to develop with some of the things that we've had processed. Sunday morning, early morning at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera disconnects. At 2:12 a.m., software detects a person on a camera. 2:28, Nancy's pacemaker app shows that it was a disconnect from the phone.
Now, Vinny, we also got a look at how investigators were attempting to locate Nancy's pacemaker. In fact, video from Fox News shows exactly how they were going about it. Helicopters were flying very close to the ground, and according to David Kennedy, the inventor of the pacemaker signal detector, pacemakers give off a low-energy Bluetooth signal, and that signal typically communicates with a mobile device to send out diagnostics, but can also be detected by what is being called a, quote, signal sniffer at certain distances. Now, David Kennedy explained how this technology was being utilized by investigators on CNN's Aaron Burnett out front. Take a listen.
And so what they're doing here is that they're flying really low to the ground because the distance you have to be able to intercept that transmission, that signal, that packet, is very low. So they're sweeping the areas looking for this transmission. And I was able to confirm that, based on the pacemaker that she has, it will broadcast every about 3 to 4 minutes or so with a very small transmission that if authorities are able to capture that, can triangulate exactly where Nancy is directly off of her pacemaker.
All right, Vinny, so we have the suspect video, we have her pacemaker data disconnecting at 2:28 a.m. Then we have this ring video, Vinny, obtained by Fox News Digital. It's from a nearby home showing multiple cars going down the road in front of this neighbor, a house that's nearby Nancy Guthrie's house. Now, we're going to play a portion of that video, and you're going to hear cars go by at these 3 separate times, at 12:46 a.m., 2:31 a.m. and 2:36 a.m. on the morning that Nancy went missing. Now, I do want to warn our viewers there are periods of silence in this video with each car passing by. Again, this home is about 2.5 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's house. Let's take a look at a portion of this video from Fox News Digital now. All right, let's break down what we just saw here. Now, it's been reported that authorities didn't have this video until very recently. This video also shows 12 cars passing by between midnight and 6 a.m. on this night. But let's focus on the car here on the screen now at 2:36 a.m. Now, this car is crucial because we know Nancy's pacemaker disconnected again from her phone at around 2:28 a.m. So 2:36. 8 minutes later, this house is 2.5 miles away. This car would reasonably fit into the timeline of her abduction. But we move on now. 2 hours actually before this, around 12:46 a.m., we see a similar car going in the opposite direction, which could imply someone going and coming. And you see there, those cars look a little bit similar in color. Even though it's black and white, we still see that it's a lighter colored car. Now, here's a map of the believed path from Nancy's house to where that Ring camera picked these cars up. We can see that it shows a way to, quote unquote, avoid the main roads and leave the area from the Catalina foothills. Now, again, Vinny, here's a better look of the car. We have 3 separate images of this car at 2:36 a.m. from 3 different instances. This could be an interesting development as this investigation continues. So we have the suspect video, we have pacemaker info, we have that Ring video, and lastly, Vinny, we're gonna talk about the mixed DNA that was found inside Nancy Guthrie's home. Now, this reporting is from NBC News. They spoke with Sheriff Nanos out there in Pima County. They say, quote, Nanos, whose agency is leading the investigation, along with federal and state partners, said last week that mixed and partial DNA was found at Guthrie's home. Mixed DNA is a forensic sample that has more than one person's genetic material. Some of that DNA was found at the home doesn't belong to Guthrie, her family, or anyone who worked at the residence, Nanos said. Goes on to say, we believe that we may have some DNA there that may be our suspect, but we won't know that until that DNA is separated, sorted out, maybe admitted to CODIS, maybe through genetic genealogy. Nanos said, referring to the combined DNA index system, the FBI's DNA database of convicted criminals. But on Friday, Nanos told NBC News the lab that received the DNA reported challenges with the sample. He did not elaborate on what the challenges are. So, Vinny, clearly here, we have a lot of leads. There's 4 major leads in this investigation so far, but somehow we still feel like we're at square one.
I know, right? It's unreal. Thanks for that breakdown, Cody. That brings us to the next question in our investigation, which is, what is the most promising lead in this investigation? One of those 4, none of the above, something else? Here to help with our investigation, host of the Surviving the Survivor podcast, Joel Waldman is here, and retired FBI agent Stuart Fillmore. Welcome to you both. Joel, I'll begin with you. From your perspective, which of those leads, or is it a different one, that you feel at this point is the most promising in this investigation?
Well, Vinny, you know what? I was just having a thought to myself, which I do often, and I was thinking it could be that it's none of these, and it's something that we have no idea about because if these investigators are doing their job well, which I truly believe they are, they're keeping things close to the vest, and we might not know what the most promising lead they have is right now. But of the ones mentioned, and great job by Cody there, I would have to say without a doubt it is the so-called ring or the Nest cameraman who we see there. To me, he's kind of the root or the tree in this, and then everything else extending out from him are the branches. So they've looked at his clothing, they've looked at his latex gloves. Some people thought that they've seen what appears to be some sort of security badge underneath. We had someone that wrote into us who is very well-versed in American Sign Language and believes that this person is signing to someone at a specific point in the video, which has been corroborated by people who speak American Sign Language. So there's all these different elements, but of the ones mentioned, I would say the suspect in front of the Nest camera is the one police are probably honing in on the most.
Stuart, what are your thoughts here? What's the most promising lead so far in this case?
Well, we still have DNA that apparently now has some problems. But I mean, that's usually key. And so hopefully that is something that, is going to come through. My understanding is that CODIS is negative for what they've got so far, but through the genetic genealogy, they could still, maybe have a success with it. It's worked in other cases. The messing with the utility box, that may be a lead, and it's absolutely something to consider. But, that implies really that this is way more sophisticated, or that it is a very sophisticated kidnapping that so far really hasn't seemed to turn out to be a kidnapping. Although that said, we just don't know what happened inside that house. Nancy's bleeding. She's bleeding for some reason. We don't know why. It could have been that something went wrong in their kidnapping plan. She gets hurt, and now what was going to be a kidnapping has turned into, now we got a body to get rid of. So, the other thing too, with the suspect on the porch, hopefully they're running down a lot of leads. They've identified the clothes. I know they have the backpack. Hopefully all that is just a matter of just sorting through a lot of different data. And again, I'm hoping that it's something that we don't know about, that could break open any time on this, and that this whole thing works out.
Absolutely. All right, Joel and Stuart are staying with us. Coming up next, should the family be speaking publicly more often?
Somebody knows, and we are begging you to please come forward now.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end, and Corey, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder.
He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
That was a big moment when Savannah Guthrie uttered those words, "We will pay." You go back in time, that's when we were really talking about this ransom note, a ransom letter that was sent to the media, and she had read it and seemed to be responding to it, but then it sort of just disappeared. Like, no one talks about it anymore. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. And Cody, I mean, that was at the time when we were hearing a little more regularly from the family. Have they spoken out lately?
Well, Vinnie, it's been a week since Savannah Guthrie posted anything to her social media. We know she's been very vocal throughout this whole process through her social media pages, specifically on Instagram. But, we haven't heard from her sister Annie or her brother Cameron since those initial video messages were posted by her videos that we just saw here. Take a listen to a mashup of some of those initial videos.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers, for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too.
She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day, despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward.
We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. I wanted to come on, and it's been 2 weeks since our mom was taken, and I just wanted to come on and say that we still have hope, and we still believe. And I wanted to say to whoever has her or knows where she is that it's never too late. And you're not lost or alone. And it is never too late to do the right thing. And we are here. We believe. And we believe in the essential goodness of every human being. And it's never too late.
And then, Vinnie, after all of those emotional posts, Savannah announces a family reward, which is a large amount. Take a listen to this video.
We also know that she may be lost. She may already be gone. She may have already gone home to the Lord that she loves and is dancing in heaven with her mom and her dad and with her beloved brother Pierce and with our daddy. And if this is what is to be, then we will accept it. But we need to know where she is. We need her to come home. For that reason, we are offering a family reward of up to $1 million for any information that leads us to her recovery.
And Vinnie, we do also know that most recently, Savannah Guthrie made her way back to New York City to visit her colleagues at the Today Show studios. She does say there is a plan to return, just no exact date just yet.
All right, Cody, thanks for all your help tonight. Brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour. Should the family be speaking publicly more often? And on a couple of notes, like one, does there need to be more happening to create more interest and more leads in the case? And could it impact the suspect as well? Still here with us, host of Surviving the Survivor, Joel Waldman, and retired FBI agent Stuart Fillmore. Stuart, what are your thoughts about the family? Should they be speaking publicly more often? Is there a way for them to impact the actions of the suspect here?
Yeah, I think so. It's not anything that they would want to overdo, and I don't know where that sweet spot is exactly. The importance of the family continuing to speak publicly is it generates leads. And, you know, there are a lot of people maybe out there that maybe don't follow the news, haven't heard of this case, and you just never know when the right person is going to hear this. Getting tips in is a vital part of a case because the lifeblood of a case is leads. But it's a double-edged sword because, Savannah Guthrie goes on, makes a statement, and I tell you, my heart just goes out to her. You can just see the tragedy in her voice, or hear the tragedy in her voice, and it's just you have to generate these leads. But most of them, the vast majority of them, are going to be just a waste of time. But you can't ignore them. You have to take those phone calls because you just don't know when the right one's going to come in.
Joel, there were two statements that Savannah made through the course of everything that I thought were both incredibly powerful. Obviously, the $1 million reward, but also the one where she seemed to make a personal plea to the suspect, saying, we believe in human decency. You're not alone. You're not lost. It's not too late. And it was a plea, we just want to recover our mom. Do you think that they should be speaking more often?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tough call for you or I or Stuart to make about another family, but Savannah Guthrie obviously is in the position that she is in as host of the biggest morning show in America because of her communication skills, and it's certainly, to Stuart's point, cannot hurt. Number one, it puts tremendous psychological pressure on the perp or perpetrators involved in this. I've talked to a lot of profilers who say that whoever's responsible is watching, and then if she speaks, it's going to put that added pressure on there. It's also called true crime, but we've got to remember that these are real people. And if Savannah gets out there and speaks to the public, she has such a dynamic way of connecting with an audience that, again, to Stuart's point, it could trigger somebody. Not everyone is watching this as intensely as we all are. So if there's somebody in Tucson who hasn't paid his close attention, or wherever these perpetrators might be, whether it's in Texas or California or elsewhere, Savannah's words, her family's words, carry a tremendous amount of weight. But real quickly, Vinny, I also think that Sheriff Chris Nanos should be speaking to the media, if just to say that they're continuing to investigate. There are all these like piecemeal interviews going out. It's very discombobulating. People's messages are getting crisscrossed, and he has not done a good job of messaging since the very beginning.
Yeah, that's... Why do you think that is, Stuart Fillmore, that you have the sheriff giving separate little interviews here and there instead of just getting behind a microphone and saying, hey, I'm going to give you an update once a week or once every 2 weeks, and just kind of put all the information out there instead of these little pieces?
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure exactly what his talents in life are. I don't find him that impressive, you know, as a public information officer. So I'm not faulting him for that, because I certainly couldn't do that job at all. I was a street guy my whole time. So it seems like sometimes he seems to put his foot in his mouth, you know, and because of that, you know, there's a possibility he could, you know, maybe reveal something that we don't want out there. You know, because you can't tell everything. You've got to hold stuff back in case someone confesses and you want to verify who they are, and they only know things that the perpetrator knows. So yeah, you want to keep the case alive. You want to keep generating leads. Is he the right guy for it? I don't know. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. It's a really tough spot for the family and for investigators. Everybody wants the same outcome, as does the public at large, and they want to help as much as they can. Big thanks, Joel Wallman, host of Surviving the Survivor podcast, on top of every development in this story. Thank you, Joel. Stuart Fillmore, retired FBI agent. Appreciate your valuable time. You know, this case occupies a very unique space in the news cycle. While coverage continues to wane, interest has not. And anytime something happens, the public wants to know. And that's why Savannah Guthrie really wields a lot of power in what happens to the story. All she needs to do is speak publicly, and every time she does, it'll be big news and will keep the story from fading and keep the investigation from going cold. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.